welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I said I would finish a game and I didn't. Host Madelyn.
I'm your Drownin' in Simone's host, Emma.
And thank you for tuning into this week's show. It's our 6 weeks in gaming episode.
Yay!
It's mid-October. Time marches on.
It sure does. Do we just have one more of these this year?
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, we'll do like a yearly
Of course.
one, I guess, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah, it does. I feel like often the 6 weeks in gaming ends up being like, oh, it's right at the end of the year and we just talked about a bunch of this and then we're doing our year recap. But I think finally the sixes are lining up a little differently.
Yeah.
Across the year end.
I feel like you could do some math to actually figure out if that was true or not, but I'm not going to do that.
Well, how many times does 6 go into 52? And then it's not exactly 52 either. So, who knows? You could do some math. This isn't a math show, though. This is a video games show.
It's true.
But there's some math involved because we have to trade off based on how many games we played in the last 6 weeks.
That's true.
I played the game of email.
That's a fun game.
It is a fun game.
Actually, online co-op.
Sometimes.
Sometimes not co-op.
Sometimes not co-op.
Asynchronous co-op.
Sometimes just, like, PvP.
Sometimes you leave your death Dark Souls message on the ground and nobody finds it.
And ain't that the truth?
Alright, well, I can start us off, I guess. I couldn't remember if I had finished Kunitsugami during our last 6 weeks or not. Everything I said then still applies. Fun little game. The little guys dance. I like it.
Love when little guys dance in games.
I love when little guys dance in games. I don't think I mentioned last time, but it has like a bit of like Okami crossover music and outfits. So that too. You can give
Okami
So
crossover
little paws.
outfits is not as appealing to me as you would think.
But he's got little paws.
Oh, okay. That kind of outfit.
Yeah. Like he has
not just
little
the
paws.
Out outfit.
The outfits?
You know how the like women in that game are like the spirit? It's just like
yeah. I don't actually know what because I know So's is just your character's the like dog one. Hers is like pink. The priestesses. I couldn't really. I don't know. I don't remember Okami well enough to remember what that's from. Anyway, I finished that. I kind of want to go back and do the New Game Plus stuff, honestly, but we'll see. Maybe over the holidays. Just another one that I was pretty close to being done with. I finished up Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. The first of our Simones.
Nice.
This afternoon. Simone Toasty.
Oh, right. I remember you texting about Simone Toasty.
Simone Toasty was a neutral boy, technically. But there is no neutral route in Vengeance. It just lets you choose which one you want to take at the very end, if you want to do law or chaos.
A choice.
So, yeah, we love a choice. So Simone Toasty was actually a lawful boy. I know you said you thought he would be a chaotic boy, but honestly, it just did not make sense with the narrative thrust, I felt like.
What did the Prime Minister think about this?
He was fine with it, I think. The Japanese Prime Minister, who Simone Toasty was in a temporary situationship with, did sacrifice himself.
Situationships by their very nature temporary.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Whatever. Did sacrifice himself to save my goddess girl. And my soulmate did return from death via sacrifice. of the dragon god. So
everything just another was Manic Monday, am I right?
Yeah. I was really enjoying Vengeance up to like probably like 2/3, maybe even 3/4 of the way through. I don't know. The last zone is so side quest hell that it's hard to gauge how far through I was when I was like, actually, this narrative isn't working for me anymore. The ending is just sort of like, chaos doesn't really make sense to me in terms of like the way the narrative had been going, and Law was just sort of underwhelming. I felt like, I don't know, it wasn't fully cooked, I guess, which was sort of the complaint I had heard about the original story as well. But I don't know, it was fun. It was interesting. There were like 3 last bosses, right? You get 2 like root ones, and then there's one that's always the last boss, it seems like, which was really funny because the 2 law root ones were like very challenging, like puzzle bosses almost, where like they have like unique gimmicks to them that you have to figure out. So one is like it's got a bunch of heads, and you've got to take out the heads to deal damage to the main head, right? But they all have different weaknesses and strengths, right? And they all do different attacks as well. And then the next one was like, I think that one was like, as you use affinities on it that it's weak to, it gains, like every turn it gains a new, like, it's now resistant to it. And when you fill up all of the affinities, it does like a huge big attack against you. And it also affects like what attacks it does on each turn. So that one was fun. And then the last one is just like, you just beat him up. It was super easy, which was extremely funny. I just hit him a lot. Okay. So it was a little underwhelming. I don't know. It was very cozy. A very cozy game. I very much enjoyed the combat. It's aesthetically very pleasing, but very, very sort of undercooked narrative-wise. So those are the 2 in-progress games I had last time that I finished.
I'm not so good at finishing games.
I am. I'm pretty good at it.
Well, I played, finally, and now I need to move on to the actual game, Final Fantasy Intermission. Or episode intermission, or whatever the heck it's called. It's not called Integrate. Integrate is the full package. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Yuffie bopping around. I expected this to be a tiny bit longer than it was, I think. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad that it was this short. I was able to finish it quite quickly. Mm-hmm. But I expected Fort Condor to get harder than it did. Basically, is most of it. I was like, surely this will eventually turn into something where I have to learn some actual strategy. And it didn't really. So I played that back in September over the course of a couple of days. I feel like I remember talking about this with you, and I am unable to remember what conversations I have with you on the podcast as opposed to just unrecorded.
I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast.
No, I know that I didn't play it since, I know I played it after Labor Day, but I'm like, would this have come up on the podcast? But I did get absolutely wrecked by like the second group of enemies.
Yes, I feel like that is actually a very common experience in the DLC.
The game is like, it gives you a warning when you start to play that's like, this game is not going to reteach you how to play the game. So Hopefully you still remember. And I was like, haha, screw you. Of course I still remember. I'll figure it out. And then the wolves killed me like 10 times.
Yeah. I feel like that's very much there to like check that, 1, you remember how to play the game, and 2, that you sort of internalized Yuffie's mechanics already. Like, did you... so it took me actually a little bit to figure out how to use her elemental skill, for example.
Oh, you throw the thing and then you zap them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but you can change the element on it.
Oh, I didn't ever figure that out.
Oh. Well, it makes that wolf fight a lot easier if you can figure out how to put ice on your distance attack.
Well, I didn't figure that out, and it was fine. We made it through. Slowly but surely.
Right.
Yeah, so I beat all of Fort Condor. Go me. Take that, Chadley. Boo, Chadley, you suck. Yeah, it got me, like, I was, like, getting back into the groove of things. I don't really know why they bothered giving you so much, like, you can upgrade your materia abilities, whatever. I mean, I know it's from the original game, but it's like, man, this was so short. Like, what was the point of that? I loved that. There
are some, like, combat challenges you can do afterwards.
Oh, sure.
Both with Yuffie, and there's some new stuff for the main game as well.
I did get the summon. I did beat the summon to unlock the summon with Chadley too. That was kind of challenging. But yeah, overall enjoyed it. Shouldn't have gotten attached to my buddy.
Yeah.
But oh well.
I am well, not to say whether anything happens in Rebirth, because of course you haven't played that now, but I'm thinking probably have not seen the last of our buddy.
Right, of course. I sort of forgot that, like, anybody can come back at any time, probably.
Well, I don't think he'll really be normal.
Sure, no, I know, but, like, I'd forgotten that, like, death is not really very permanent, probably.
Well, no, it's pretty permanent in Final Fantasy VII.
Unless
you're thinking of Kingdom Hearts.
Well, unless it's not here, though. I don't know. We've done enough fussing with, established
well, anyway, Sonon is not a
game.
Character from the original game, for what it's worth, which you probably didn't necessarily know when you were playing it, but...
Did not know that. Figured he was somehow from it, but that's fine. Some good Moogle content, which is really what's the most important thing.
Sure, yeah.
And now I feel the crushing weight of needing to play whatever introduction, whatever the next one is.
Introduction?
Interlude, interval. What is it again?
What are you talking about?
No, it's not even inter. That's not even what it starts with, is it? It's rebirth.
Rebirth is the second one.
I couldn't remember.
I was like, what are you talking about?
I hope they make more that are like inner.
No, they've said they aren't making DLC between. The Yuffie was mostly, one, because she was a character who could be doing things during that period, and two, so that they could practice on the PlayStation 5.
Fair enough. You're telling me they're not practicing on the Switch 2 with some DLC right now? Just saying.
No, I don't think so.
Just kidding.
It would be really funny if they somehow made DLC exclusive to the Switch 2 for a game that's not on the Switch 2. I think that'd be really funny.
That you know of. But yeah, I am feeling the pressure of having less than 3 months to play Rebirth, which I almost said the wrong title for again, before we see the concert. Yeah.
Well, you can always just cover your eyes and ears for parts of the concert, I guess.
No, that seems like a bad idea.
Just so bring some surreptitious earplugs for parts that are spoilery.
Yeah, I hope that they announce those very clearly in advance.
I think, they will, probably.
But yes, I'm looking forward to diving into it with some trepidation, although I won't lie that all of the RGG content flying around is making me want to play one of the ones I haven't played. But I think Final Fantasy has to be the next big one.
Is all you have Dead Souls?
And Ishin.
Oh, and Ishin. Fair enough.
Now they won't. Now that they've announced that they're doing a pirate game, they're never going to remaster the zombie game. Like, that's just not going to happen.
They're gonna make one and it's somehow canon now. They're just gonna make a zombie game next. And it will be real, like real zombies.
I'll talk about the RGG stuff later, maybe. I'll do it. You've got more games than me. I'll sub in my I did watch it live reaction.
Alright, Simone number 2. I got a bit drawn into the hype for this one, but I played Famicom Detective Club Emio the Smiling Man. Which I don't remember if I mentioned on the show or afterwards, was like the creepy advertising campaign that Nintendo was doing before, with the guy with the bag on his head. So that's what was for this. They previously released the previous two Famicom Detective games, which obviously they're Famicom, right? They're pretty old, but they had made like remasters of them and released them, and now this was a brand new one, right? And it's rated M. It's dark. And I saw a lot of people really praising it, and I like the Phoenix Wright games. I like walk and talk, point and click, whatever type mystery games. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll enjoy this. And it was fine. It gets the tenuous, the not tenuous, that's not the word for it, the dubious distinction of being probably the first game I've ever played where I've been like, I think I would enjoy this so much more if it was in any other format.
Wow. If
it was a book or a TV show or a movie, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Interesting.
So the difference between these games and something like Phoenix Wright is you have more options of like things you can do in a scene, and part of it is like figuring out the correct action to take to move the conversation or the plot or whatever forward. So it's not just like talk and examine, it's like talk about these certain subjects or listen to them talking or look at certain things or think or call someone, or you have all of these choices that you can do. And if you pick the wrong one, you either get like some fluff dialogue or just nothing happens, essentially. And it tries to guide you to like what you should be doing. Like when a part ends, it will highlight some text for you, or the last part will be like, oh, I should be doing this. And if you think, usually that can help you figure out what you're supposed to do next. But there were some scenes that were just like, okay, there's a character named Fukuyama, who is the female Ayumu's who's the female member of the detective agency, alongside Simone Sashimi.
What inspired the last names?
For this one, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Just feeling fishy.
Feeling fishy. And he's like her old senpai from Kendo Club, and he's now teaching at this school where they're investigating, like a student died, essentially, and they're investigating his murder. And every time you have to have a conversation with him, it's like a labyrinth of hell. I just like, I can never figure out what I was supposed to do next in the conversations with him, because he like jumps around to different topics a lot and is frequently going off on tangents. And it's just like, I hate talking to him. Every time he's on screen, I was like, no, get him away from me, right? And it has nothing to do, like, if I was reading him in a book, I feel like I would get the impression of like, oh, this guy's kind of wacky, right? But sort of charming in a way. But when I have to like figure out how I'm supposed to talk to him, it's not. I feel no affection for him, right? Anyway, the main mystery of this is there's a like high school boy who's been killed, and he has a paper bag with a smiley face over his head. So you're investigating his murder, which ties into like murders from several years ago as well, and trying to figure out what happened in like both that cold case and in this case now. And it's also very backloaded in plot. A lot of the investigation is like, and we learned nothing, and we learned nothing, and we found out things we already knew, and we learned nothing. And it's just like, just structured. So again, if I was reading in a book, I feel like that would be fine, right? I don't know. It's just like when I am taking the actions, I feel like I am like just wasting my time a little bit. So I feel like its story is solid, like on its own. It's just like being put into this structure made it very hard for me to get through. I just did not have the patience for it.
That's understandable, I think. So
that's my review of Emio, the Smiling Man. And the So a lot of the story, like I said, is backloaded. There's a whole epilogue that's about 20, like just an anime episode, essentially. It's like 20 minutes of animated footage.
Oh, crazy.
Telling parts of the story that you didn't get during the main story. And it's like, wow, this is so much more engaging. Things are actually happening.
We should have done it this way.
Things are actually happening, and it's paced like a normal thing. Wow. Anyway.
Well, you get 2 from me now. Podcast games.
Okay.
I did play at the beginning of the 6 weeks some more Balatro. I had not quit Balatro by Labor Day, I don't think. I have not played it. I definitely have not played it since like September 20th.
Good. We're all glad. We're all pleased for you.
Ooh. I was thinking about the music the other day. Just the do 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 do, and how soothing that would be to have. I don't know. I am entering these next few days are an intense period of work stress, and there is a part of me that's like, just fire up Balatro, Matt. Will you send those emails, Madeline? Just put it on. It's not gonna suck you in. You'll still get stuff done. Don't worry about it.
Right? Yeah. The little Joker guy was whispering in your ear, right?
Seriously. So, I wish I could play more without feeling like it was going to take over my life again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like holding on. I'm like, I haven't played in like a month. Let's hold on to that. But listener, you should play. And like I have like hung out with someone who, and I mentioned like, oh yeah, I've been playing a lot of Balatro, and they were like, oh yeah, me too. And that almost sucked me back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only for this person, they were like, actually, it's a relief. It's like, it's a relief from the games I usually play. It requires less of my focus.
I see.
Like, that's really interesting. But I promised on the podcast last week, I said last week on the podcast that I was going to finish Limbo. There was so much more of Limbo left than I thought there was.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've played about an hour and a half of it. There's probably another hour and a half. That'll finish it. No. There was more.
Wow.
So I'd say I'm like 3/4 of the way to the end. But I could not finish it. I will finish it because I don't want to abandon it when I'm like this close to the end. I do sort of feel like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not feeling like the puzzles are so satisfying to solve that I'm like, oh yeah, like I can't, like I got kind of tired. Like it was maybe theoretically possible, especially given how the hours worked out in advance of recording this podcast, that if I had really buckled down, that I probably could have finished it. But it was not a game where I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'm gonna do a marathon session. I was like, okay, like I've solved about a dozen more puzzles, like let's chill. I did have to look up one solution, which was just because I wasn't noticing a really obvious switch that I should have been, like it had up and down arrows.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
And so I didn't really feel bad about looking that up because I was like, I don't actually feel like this gave me any like actual spoiler hint. It was just like, hey, idiot.
Look at the screen.
Yeah, like did you notice those really obvious arrows right there? I did have a lot of trouble. If you aren't familiar with Limbo, like very dark, kind of walking around puzzly game, listen to last week's episode. But I had a lot of trouble with the brain worms the first time I encountered them because I didn't really understand how they worked. But once I started to understand how they worked, they were less tricky. I imagine RFK felt the same.
Ugh.
So yeah, I don't think Limbo is going to be my game of the year. It's fine. It will probably be good. I'm gonna my fourth and final game is also on the Nintendo Switch, and now I'm done with it. And so I do need something else to play on the Switch, and so Limbo will fill that void for a little bit at least. Mm-hmm. But yeah, all of the people being like, it should have been longer. It should have been longer. Like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like we're already running out of ideas here.
Yeah.
Like how many? I just did like 6 puzzles in a row where the gimmick was there's water rising.
All right, I'll do 2 more. So Emiya was the start of my spooky games, spooky season games, right?
Spooky.
So Spooky Switch season even. So I also played a bit, or a chunk, a while of World of Horror, which is a horror-tinged roguelike, where you take on the role of like a plucky young adult in a town that's like been cursed by an old god.
Same.
It's very Junji Ito inspired in sort of art style and the little stories. So in the course of a run, you get like 4 to 5 mysteries, depending on how hard you set your difficulty, I think, that you have to solve, right? So you pick one and then you investigate it through going to different parts of town and running into like random events, essentially. So sometimes those events are just like skill checks or random things that happen to you, or sometimes you run into combat with enemies as well. And every time you take an action, your doom meter goes up. And if you reach 100% doom before you solve all the mysteries and get to the top of the lighthouse where the old god resides, your town is destroyed, right? And each time you solve a mystery, usually you get a little bit of doom back, right? Because you've staved off something, right?
Doomy.
So each of these mysteries have like several different endings you can get as well by different actions you take over the course of them. Some of those endings are better than others, right? Like some give you benefits, some give you detriments if you solve them badly, for instance. You can also take actions around town, like buying yourself weapons and equipment like flashlights and maps and stuff, and also picking up allies, potentially, as well, that can help you in combat or adjust your stats in various ways. And as you complete runs, you unlock more characters that have different stats and different benefits and drawbacks of doing them. You unlock different backstories, which essentially like change certain ways that things interact. So like the first one I unlocked is like brittle bones. So you're like very weak. So every time you get hit in combat, you have a chance of gaining like an injury that you have to go to the hospital to heal or just deal with.
Same, I guess.
Yeah. Or like there's one where you run into more combat, but also like every time you solve a mystery, you get more doom back, essentially. And you also have like health. So if you run out of both like your physical or mental things, you also lose the run, right? So it was pretty fun. It's pretty diverting. I found that but when I was like feeling like, okay, I feel like I'm done with this now, I was feeling like it was simultaneously like I took the same actions every time, and also like things were a little bit too random. Like sometimes you just get random events that are just like, and I took 2 stamina off you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Thanks. I guess so. There's nothing I could have done to avoid that or change that in any way, right? And the different characters don't really feel like the backstories, I feel like, changed a little bit of how I played, but just picking a different character didn't really make me feel like I was the different stats didn't really feel like they did anything.
Yeah.
And it really just felt like you should just have high dexterity so you can dodge things in combat. And like just take the same combat actions every time. And that was the combat especially was like, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again because there's not really another good strategy, right? Yeah. It's not very involved. There's a couple of mysteries that will set you in like special locations, right? So you don't have just the normal town menu where you're visiting places, but like you're in like a mansion, or you're in like a separate village with a festival going on, or you're in the school, right? Looking into a mystery there. And those ones were pretty fun, right? Because they require some like setup first, like you would do another mystery first and get set up for the next mystery before you pick that one, right? Because you couldn't like go buy things over the course of these mysteries. So that added some variation too, but there just weren't enough of them, I felt like. So yeah, it was pretty fun, and it has a very cool aesthetic. If you're very into this sort of Junji Ito type aesthetic thing, it might be pretty fun, like a pretty fun diversion. I can see myself going back like next October and doing a couple runs to when I feel like I'm in a spooky mood, right? But it wasn't like, oh yeah, I love this, right? I really want to figure out how to make optimal runs in this. It just like wasn't that. Our final Simone of the afternoon.
Big Simone energy.
Simone Crispy with a K.
No. Now I understand what it feels like when I announce my character names, and it's like, buddy.
I started playing for my final Spooky Switch game, Spirit Hunter NG, which I think last year I played Spirit Hunter Deathmark.
Sure. I do not remember.
So this is in the same series and technically in the same universe, but it's different characters and a different setting.
Cool.
So, Simone Crispy, your usual not so nice rough and tumble boy, high school boy, living in the city. One day, when he's babysitting his cousin/sister, he's adopted by his aunt. She gets kidnapped by a mysterious spirit named Kakuya, who challenges Simone to play her game, or else he'll disappear and Ami, his sister, will never come back. And her game with him is essentially she gives him a spirit to investigate, and he has to deal with this spirit within like a 3-day time limit, or else he will lose the game to her. But unfortunately, there's no way to win the game because Kakuya will just continue to play it until she wins because she's not very sportsmanlike.
No.
So he starts out by investigating with his 2 friends, and then more characters get introduced. I just finished the 3rd haunting, essentially. All right, sight unseen, Madelyn. If you were Simone Crispy, rough and tumble, not so nice boy, who would you pick as most important to you? Okay. Would you pick crime boyfriend or occult girlfriend?
Crime boyfriend.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Absolutely, no question.
It took, I do like occult girlfriend, but I did also pick crime boyfriend. There's a point after the second haunting where Kakuya is a little bit pissed that you've been winning, right? And so she decides that you have to pick between your 2 investigative partners up to that point, which one's most important to you. And then the other one Hazuki, unfortunately, has been put into a coma, essentially, afterwards. Which is interesting. One thing about these have bad, normal, and good endings, depending on how well you do in the hauntings. I never felt like for Deathmark that I wanted to get those endings, right? They just didn't feel like they'd be substantially different to me. But this one is good at like being like, I feel like there's interesting ways the story would change based on like whether you failed certain hauntings, right? Because with each spirit, you can either purify it nicely or you can destroy it. And if you destroy it, your curse gets passed on to whoever is investigating with you, so they die. So you want to be purifying it so that your partners don't die. But by having amounts of them die, you get different endings, essentially. And I imagine it, based on who you pick, whether you pick crime boyfriend or occult girlfriend, also will impact parts of the story going forward. Which is interesting. Because I have, one thing that was introduced in the second haunting was that his Amanome is the crime boyfriend and Hazuki's occult girlfriend. Amanome has a modified gun that you take off of him when you pick him for this. So I'm very curious what happens to that modified gun if you pick Hazuki. Like, is she like, you better get that gun off of him also? Or like, does he get arrested rather than being put into a coma because he has a gun on him? I am very curious as to how that plays out. And then do you not have the gun? Interesting. I don't know.
Ending explained.
So it is interesting. Yeah, I'm having a lot more fun with this one. I liked Deathmark. I don't know if you remember. You probably don't. But like my main complaint with Deathmark was its art was like inexplicably horny sometimes.
Oh, that does sound vaguely familiar. Actually.
Like at times when things were like supposed to be like really horrifying, right? Like the descriptions were horrifying, right? Like parts of the art were horrifying, and then there'd just be like a woman's butt in the middle of it. And this one has like completely avoided that, right? When things are horrifying, they're just horrifying, which does make it easier to like get in the mood of things when you're not like broken out suddenly every once in a while by like
a butt.
The artist is feeling like he'd like to think about butts right now. Okay.
Do you think they just had art that didn't get finished and they were like, just send us what you've got?
No, it's very detailed.
In
this one. In this one? No, because there's just less chance of that sort of stuff happening, too. It was, like, really egregious in Deathmark. Like, the first haunting in that one is, like, about, like... some of the hauntings in that one are, like, about, like, sexual menace, essentially. And then it's, like... Anyway, here's some... non-remarked upon sexual menace.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. But yeah. I'm liking this one a lot better. And the characters are fun. It's also better at like hiding when like you can have whichever partner with you at one time. Because the investigative sections are a little bit shorter, I think. In Deathmark, frequently they would be hit with like the non-binary beam, where they'd all switch to they/them pronouns when it could be whoever, for instance, just as one example. And they would have like really like just like default lines whenever they talked, right? In this one, it's much better. Like there's clearly some times where you can have like one of two characters with you, right? But it's much better at like giving them unique dialogue for that, or at least writing the lines in a way where it feels like they would actually say them.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, having a good time with that. I'm looking forward to seeing how things go for Simone Crispy.
You got this, Simone Crispy.
He's got it. He's got it.
Crime boyfriend.
It also has an extremely funny system where occasionally you can like respond to people's words by like picking an emotion, which like goes from extremely like huh to like oh like the most angry expression you've ever seen to like the happiest, the most like fake smile you've ever seen, honestly. And it doesn't really seem to do anything, really. It's just like, do you want to be really mad here for some reason?
Weird game mechanics are fun. That's what it does. Okay, RGG segment before I talk about my last game. Wow, unbelievable. Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is shocking. You must be unhappy about it, but I'm thrilled.
I'm not unhappy about it. I have mixed feelings. Not even necessarily. I know some people are like, oh, it's too goofy now. It's not really about it being goofy for me.
Here's the thing. It's not going to be goofy. There's going to be some kind of darkness that appears in this game.
Yeah, like, no. Yeah. I think it's an interesting concept, honestly. Right? It's just, I have mixed feelings about the depiction of Hawaii. I guess.
It's not real Hawaii.
I know, but like... Do you know what I mean?
I know.
That's my main thing. It's just like it's very like how Westerners treat Japan sometimes.
Sure.
You know?
I guess I just sort of feel like this game, like I completely agree in the context of Infinite Wealth. This game has gone so far off the deep end that it's sort of like no one really thinks that there's a giant floating casino run by pirates in Hawaii. Right? Like,
sure, yeah.
Nobody really thinks that.
The RGG is really on, like, a floating...
I know.
...kick. Like, we love it on the open seas right now.
They're loving the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that's gonna tie all the Gaiden games together is weird floating pleasure palace.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for it. I'm hyped that Saijima's there. Hope Kiryu's okay.
Yeah, I am very curious as to, like, whether there'll be, like, any sort of impetus denial to this, because it feels like it has to be, like, Kiryu's dead, but, like, also it can't be that, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what's tricky, is it's like, yes, this man is having a psychotic break, which seems to be because Kiryu died, but, like, that can't be...
That can't be what it is.
Structurally, that makes no sense.
And I feel like if it's, like, anything else, it's just like, haven't we done this already, though? You know?
Do you think he'll run into Makoto? You think she'll be there?
In Hawaii?
Yeah.
Sure.
She moved to the States.
Why not?
Yeah.
No, it's just like, if it's like, oh, he's sad because there's no Yakuza or something again, it's like, why don't you just go back to the fishing boat or whatever that you're already in Infinite Wealth? So I don't know what, but it feels like there has to be some sort of impetus for his strange amnesia pirate break thing. But who knows? Anyway, I'll probably play it.
I hope it's that it's like, oh, Daigo's restarting the Yakuza. He's like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I'll probably play it. It's got ship combat.
I'm hype about it. I'm really hyped about it. I can't believe I'm getting a Majima game. Unbelievable. I hope Ichiban's in it.
I hope that he's, like, just always off in the distance doing something.
Yeah, I hope Silent Ichiban is in it.
It's like, in the Miles, just because I mentioned Phoenix Wright earlier, in the Miles Edgeworth Investigations games, occasionally you can find Phoenix and Maya, like, off in the corner of the screen, like, doing something separate. That's what it'd be like.
That's what
like,
I would
occasionally you look in the distance and Ichiban's over there, like, in the middle of a sub-story.
Okay, maybe he's in Hawaii. Maybe, here's my theory. Haruka and the fam were, like, going on a trip to Hawaii, and he was, like, just following them to make sure they were safe. But then something went wrong, and he hit his head.
Okay, sure. Why not? I don't know.
That's my thought. That's my proposal. But also, Haruka now is in the photo that they shared for the TV show. I thought it looked like Haruka was not going to be in the TV show.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But she's in there. The RGG thing posted a thing that looks like she's there. So
interesting.
This show is going to be so bad, and I really want everyone to watch it. I want to be able to talk to people about this.
Oh yeah, I also think it's fun. Do you think that the Majima just happens to run into people who also speak Japanese, or that he's canonically speaking English in his amnesia? Do you think Majima can speak English?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna go yes. I'm gonna go all three of them tried to learn to speak English, and here's a fanfiction idea for anyone.
Okay. All
three of them tried to learn to speak English in the cabin for 2 years. Saejima, worse than he was before. Daigo maybe already knew some English because he's a rich boy.
Right.
Majima, a prodigy.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
But has like a southern accent.
I'm actually curious if they'll have dub on launch for it.
I mean, they're doing it. I know they're doing dub, but I don't know.
I think they just didn't have one for Gaiden because it was kind of like they got Infinite Wealth to dub before they got Gaiden to dub.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll. Matthew Mercer Majima.
I won't be playing that. Won't be doing it.
All right. My last game, quick one. I started Tales of Symphonia Remastered. For my, I wanted my comfort RPG fix, right? It is, I'm having fun, right? I am. Very bare bones remaster. It really does just feel like they were like did not add anything to it in terms of like quality of life features. But because it is very, like, obtuse in its progression, right? I accidentally went the horrible thing, worst thing in the world happened to me. I accidentally went the totally correct way in a dungeon.
No!
I took every correct turn until I reached the end, and then I could no longer go back in it.
Crushing.
Tragic. And part of it, too, as I was looking this up, because I could not figure out how to move forward because something was just not triggering for me. But there are various points in this game where you can choose several different ways to keep progressing, essentially. So that also adds a little bit to the obtuseness of just kind of run around until you figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing. Also, they didn't like redub it or anything, right? It's the original voice acting. Oh boy.
Well, dated, huh?
The voice acting is fine. The sound quality is awful.
Yikes.
I can hear all of their S's.
Oh.
It is pretty bad. And also a holdover because they didn't do any redubbing. The original release did not have dubs for the skits that happen. Mm-hmm. Like in Tales, occasionally when you're running around, you'll hit the button and they'll play a little like 2D skit thing. There's no dub for that.
Oh, they didn't do one.
No, they didn't do one on the original release. And of course, they did not add any for this, right? Because they didn't do any new English voice acting. So they're still play like a cuts, like you can't like skip through, like page through them, right? Because they have little animations that play. Just like dead silent except for the background music. It's a little bit eerie, honestly.
Nice.
If I like, and I'm not gonna turn on the Japanese voice acting for this because it just I'd prefer to have the English voice acting for games. So yeah, it's very old. But I like Tales. It's always very charming and comfortable. So I'm excited to see where the journey takes us. I'm really just like at the very beginning. So maybe in the next 6 weeks, I'll talk a little bit more about like the actual story and stuff. And finally, it is still for a little bit Steam Next Fest, which means there's tons of demos to play. And for the last few, I hadn't really gotten around to it, but this time I actually played a whole bunch of demos. I tried a whole bunch of stuff. So just to hit some of the highlights, I played more than this, but I'm just going to talk about the ones that were notable to me.
Please.
Firstly, tried the Citizen Sleeper 2 demo.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that game.
Just a little bit of it because I'm going to play it anyway, right? It's definitely a lot more complex in terms of the various systems that it has going on than the first one. They've essentially taken out the stabilizer function and then added a bunch of other functions that sort of go on top of that, right? Because you open up with basically, in order to get away from the person that's been like working you, one of your friends, who I think his name's... You lose your memory at the beginning of this, so this is just me role-playing. I think his name's Seraphine.
Sure.
But he's made it so that you don't have to rely on stabilizer anymore, essentially. So instead there's like a stress system that I'm not entirely sure how it works, but like each of your dice have little yellow ticks on it. And I think that dice can break if you get too much stress. You still have your energy, so you still have to eat stuff. And you have, the way the classes are set up is each one has a skill that they just don't have as well. So like, it doesn't seem like you can level it at all, you just do not have that skill ever. Which changes sort of more the way that you play versus like you eventually get all the skills in the first game, right? And occasionally there's just normal skill checks in scenes as well, which the first game did not have. And you take on contracts. So you have to prepare your ship to go out and do things, essentially like you take a trip to then do like specialty actions there to like, so anyway, I stopped right before we were about to royally F up a contract. I was like, I get the picture. I can wait to totally fail until the actual game is out. You and when the whole damn crew don't know nothing about Intuit.
Remember when everyone said Citizen Sleeper was really hard and I didn't think it was very hard?
I think that this one, at least the beginning, I remember finding the beginning of Citizen Sleeper relatively challenging. And this one feels like it will be challenging for longer, at least. Mm-hmm. I think you're also not as tied to one place, because currently the ticking timer I'm on is like, get out of here. So I think you go to like various different locations as well, so there's less chance to get like settled in to stuff as well. Anyway, so that was Citizen Sleeper 2. I played Stratagem Lost, which is a tactics RPG, sort of in the vein of Fire Emblem, where you have your player turn and then your enemy turn. But the way that stuff works is each character has like a stamina sort of thing, and the number of spaces you move, the attacks that you make take up certain amounts of that stamina, right? So you have your character can keep going until they're out of stamina, but if you leave them some stamina, they can also counterattack on the enemy's turn, as opposed to if they don't have any, they're just sort of a sitting duck to get hit. Which adds like an interesting layer of strategy to it, I think, because technically you can have one character take multiple actions, right, if you need them to, but also there's a benefit to saving some of that stamina if you want to be able to hit an enemy back when they come get you as well. There's also like special moves that each of the characters can do that either is like, you know, like healing or special attacks that change like which part of like the weapon triangle their attack is on, or impart special effects onto the enemy. They also fill up like super moves that like affect characters in a radius around them as well. So there's a lot of interesting sort of wrinkles going on, I felt like, but mostly fed the little Fire Emblem goblin in my brain. That was nice. Like, more. Let's see. Played Mushroom Musume, which is like a raising game where you raise mushroom daughters.
I thought you said a raisin game for a minute, but yes, a
raising game where you raise various mushroom daughters
musumes,
to take on the world and then take on the role of that mushroom daughter as they continue to grow up as well. So like things happen, you affect your stats by making decisions, right?
You said that in such a matter-of-fact way. That's a bonkers concept for a game.
I know. And when you're originally growing the mushroom as well, you like give it things so that you can affect like sort of its her base personality, right? It's very charming. I liked it. I like raising little mushroom. I made 2 extremely normal mushroom girls somehow, honestly. They were very normal.
Well-adjusted.
They're very well-adjusted mushroom girls. One of them a little socially awkward, but that was okay, honestly.
That's kind of what you would expect from a mushroom girl, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but, you know, she was happy.
That's what matters. Maybe.
A couple other quick ones. I played Stone of Madness, which is like sort of like a stealth game, essentially, where you're like going through this monastery as like people who are sort of unwillingly being like, there's something bad going on in the monastery, right? So you're sneaking through various parts of the monastery with different characters who have different ways that they lose like their sanity, right? So you have to manage where they're standing and what they're doing, and also have different abilities for things that they can do. So like the girl that you pick up can either kill guards or whack them in the back of the head with a plank. I could not figure out how to switch between kill and whack for a while, so we did some murders by accident, mostly. And then the last notable one I played was Tribe 9, which is the one of the projects from Tukyo Games, which is the company that the Danganronpa Zero Escape guy founded. that's being made by Akatsuki Games, I think. It's going to be like a gacha thing. But so it's their original concept developed by someone else. A weird game. I don't know what's going on in this game. There's like combat, there's normal combat system, right? And there's also ultimate baseball.
Of course.
So
naturally.
I played sort of through the beginning 2 hours where there's a very highly scripted version of ultimate baseball. Like for story reasons.
Sure.
And essentially like you have various different characters, and when the pitcher is like throws some words at you, right? And then you have to think of how you respond, and your response dictates how you respond to the pitch. So like which direction that you're hitting it in, like how hard you're hitting it, these various different stuff. And you also can like build up special moves by building up your tension meter. That you can then unleash upon the baseball field, which if the gacha system leans into like building a baseball team, I think it might get me.
Yeah, that'll be the one.
I mean, it's a sports game. I want sports games so bad. But anyway, it looks really great. I think it's really cool how, what's his name? Rui Komatsu is the artist that done all the Danganronpa and most of the projects with them. Their art is very distinctive, and they had trouble in the past bringing it to like 3D, and I think they've really got it now. Like the models look really, really good. I do think it's really funny. I think to sort of save on animation, right? They do like really strong poses in conversation, right? And they always move into the pose, right? So they like are moving around very bouncily, but they always like reset back to their default pose before moving into the pose, right? Because otherwise it would be hellish creating all the different transitions between their poses. But it gives it like this very distinctive, weird sort of feel.
Yeah, like
where
cozy.
Like they're posed and then like it's like extremely bouncy, right? Yeah. Because they all come back down before going into their next thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of fun to look at, honestly. I don't know if it's the best solution, but I see why they did it, and it's kind of fun. Anyway, I'll probably, when that comes out, I'll probably check it out. I don't know. I don't have Near Reincarnation anymore, so... I gotta pick my extremely weird gacha to play. I can't just play Genshin Impact. So yeah, that's my Steam Next Fest.
Well, to close it out, this 6 weeks I started and finished 1,000 Times Resist. Yes, that means that I've played 3 of the huge number of indies that came out in that same week of May. Can you believe it? I did it. I played Animal Well, I played Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and now I've played 1,000 Times Resist, which was actually the one that I purchased first, and I just hadn't started.
And now you done it.
And now I done it. Was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. Really engaging, really interestingly told. Did really think that it was going to end at chapter 5. I was like, I'm almost done with this a week ago. And then I was like, no, I'm not.
And it's really better for having not ended at chapter 5, honestly.
Agreed. Lots of interesting stuff happens after chapter 5, so...
Yeah. I really thought I was going to end at, like, chapter 5, and then, like, when the play happens, and then, like...
No, I knew the play wasn't going to be the end. I was like,
I was surprised periodically by how it kept going, I guess. But I always felt like it was the correct choice to keep going. Yes, that makes sense.
I agree.
Felt like it ended at the right time for it.
I think it did a nice job in the sort of like time-hopping storytelling of it all. Worked pretty well. I think that they were able to set up a evocative world. I did do in my, you don't go on Instagram, but in my Instagram story about finishing it, I was like, I hate when people do this, but like, you probably shouldn't read too much about this game before you play it.
Yeah.
Some of the reviews like really get into it, and I was like, I don't know, kids. Like, I actually don't think you need to do this.
Well, I think it's because Well, the people who were writing about it were people who were passionate about it, right? For one thing. They weren't just, like, assigned this on review.
Sure, but I don't know. It's not like I expected. Like, I feel like the Polygon review like disappointed me a little bit because it was just like felt like it was a big plot summary, and I was like, that's not what I wanted. There's
a bunch of really good writing about this, so for what it's worth, but they do all very much get into it, because they're talking about the various things that it's referencing and so on and so forth. I really liked the way it handled the, like, ending choice. In that it's not, like, tracking your decisions all the way up to there, but the way it's prompted you to think about these things, and then it asks you for what your ultimate conclusion is, at the end there. What did you do? What ending did you get?
Well, originally I made a choice and I went to check my choice and it was like, everything sucks.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was like, everybody's been murdered, basically.
Yeah, you can't, I do appreciate also that actually you can't keep the cops.
I didn't know that. I got rid of the cops from the beginning, so that's...
Well, Mauve also counts as the cops.
I felt like Mauve deserved a second chance.
Yeah, but she's just gonna shoot you in the face immediately.
I still felt like Mauve deserved a second chance. I was a little bit bummed that the game sort of like... I did not get any of the non-ending endings. I managed to put something together that took me straight to an actual ending.
Oh, and everything sucked?
No. I changed it like a bajillion times until I got an ending that felt good.
Okay. Got it.
But yes, my initial thing was like, and they all were executed.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, so that is my one quote. I mean, it was good. It made me think about it, but it was also sort of, I did feel a tiny bit of sort of like, well, ultimately I made some choices based on what the occupant told me was going to happen, not really about whose things I wanted to carry with me.
Sure.
So,
but I do think it's fitting, at least with the central message of, like, I'm sure a lot of people would go up there and be like, actually, I'm not going to turn anything off, you know? And it does make it clear to you, like, no, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
You not everything fits in the backpack, right? Which I think is its sort of central thesis message there.
No, that's fine. I was just sort of like, oh, some of these people that I felt like maybe deserved some kind of forgiveness, or that I didn't want to be like, throw that whole thing out. I don't know. I felt like Mauve in particular was like, oh, it's a bummer that you like can't keep her at all without it just like wrecking everything else in your web.
Sure.
So I was like, this is one person. But whatever. So yes, I spoilers, I guess. I kept principal.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the principal ending.
Mm-hmm. I did not keep principal.
Man, principal deserves forgiveness. I don't know.
I think that I felt that she had spent too long hurting others without doing any work for herself. And so I did not forgive her.
I just felt like I kept a bunch of other things that were like about forgiveness, and I was like, oh, it seems wrong to not keep, like, it felt hypocritical to keep these other things that were like about reparations and about forgiveness, to not bring principal along.
But those were like about the people who were harmed, right? Versus, I mean, she was someone who had been harmed, but also someone who did great harm onto others. I also got rid of Knower, for what it's worth.
I got rid of Knower, but only because I felt like I had to get the outcome that I wanted. I tried to keep Knower.
I don't think that her presence has an impact, actually. I think you would have still gotten the principal ending.
Well, I would have still gotten the principal ending, but I cared about... I didn't realize that it was going to funnel me into one of two endings. I cared about the world that I was creating based on how the occupant described it. And Knower being there was messing things up.
Don't they just say you'll try to reconcile these two things?
Maybe. Like, I did get that. I felt like there was something else where, like, I turned Knower off and, like, suddenly something worked better. I can't remember what it was, though.
Well, fair enough.
I don't know. I feel a lot of kinship with Knower. I feel like I
me too. I think Nowhere is probably one of my favorite characters in the game, but I felt like if I was going to turn off the light on Principal, I had to also turn it off on Nowhere.
Fair enough. It was interesting. I enjoyed that ending beat for sure. And yeah, I think it did a pretty good job kind of crafting its cosmology for the most part. Some of the occupant stuff I feel like maybe could have been like a tiny bit more clearly communicated, but it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean the specifics of it are definitely nebulous.
Yeah,
but essentially the thing I got is it's just the same thing again, right? That they were sent off with nothing but a distant memory of home, and then created children that they did not handle well, and so on and so forth, right?
Sure. And yeah, there were just a handful of narrative threads that I expected to come. Like, I expected the, like, what did she reveal about Zhao that was, like, so horrible to everyone to come back at some point. Not that it needed to. It's like this story was really smartly crafted, and every tiny little thing that I sort of, like, expected to come back, but that didn't, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, yeah. We didn't do that.
I kind of assumed it was she stole her diary.
I did too, but I was like,
showed it around. But
like, I was like, what is it though? Like, that felt like such a key moment. We returned to that moment of Zhao running through the streets like 4 times.
Yeah.
And I did think that there was going to be a tiny bit more payoff to the Zhao of it all, given how, and not just that, like, we turned them into slaves, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was interesting. But it was good. People should play it. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I have tried not to spoil it just because my boyfriend, who has hopefully stopped listening to the episode at this point, because I think it'll scratch his, like, Outer Wilds itch a bit here, for sure. But now I need a new game on the Switch.
Right.
I do think that I liked this one the best of my 3 May indies.
Yeah.
I really liked Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I liked so much of Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and then the ending, like, really fumbled it for me.
Mm.
That doesn't really take away how much I enjoyed the experience of it up till that. But this one, I feel like did a great job of figuring out a way of, like, this feels culminating mostly in a way that game was sort of like, we've set up all this stuff and then, like, we kind of just dropped it all.
Yeah, fair enough.
Did you like Johnson the 50? Johnson the 50 was low-key a favorite of mine.
Yeah, I did. It was the 50 was I really actually liked that chapter where you're, like, following the 50 around. Because it was very interesting to see it from that side and to see what I didn't think they would actually really go into, like, the specifics of the 50. Yeah, I did like Johnson, actually.
I was like,
I mean, he kind of sucks, but, like, I liked him.
No, I was like, this man is trying his best.
And it's not great.
And he's
trying his best, but it's not great.
That were bad. But, like, man, he didn't bring the occupants down on them, did he?
No.
I also just thought he had a very specific voice acting choice that was, like, distinctive enough that I liked him because I was like, that's a character.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our 6 weeks in gaming.
Heck yeah. This next 6 weeks is the 6 weeks where I really play some games.
Is it?
It is!
So this time?
It really is. Well, listeners, have you played anything we talked about this week? Do you have thoughts? I put it out to my Instagram. I was like, anyone who's played this game, talk to me about it. And then nobody said anything.
Sorry, I'll check Instagram.
Where's Emma? I don't know. Do you think you're gonna be good at Citizen Sleeper 2? As good as I'm gonna be? What next game should I play on the Nintendo Switch? Because the next game I play on the PlayStation is going to be Final Fantasy. Should Emma stop showing off and playing more games than me every single time we do these episodes? If you have thoughts on this or anything else we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog, featuring long-running series, Click My Boyfriend, and Split Screen. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Cast, wherever you can find podcasts. Listen to Talk This.
Next week, we're talking about Hotel Dusk, Room 215, and Tekken 8.
So get punchy with it.
Get punchy with it.
Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening. This week, I hope that Emma doesn't decide that you don't deserve forgiveness.